Our Rice correspondent, Tokunbo Yetuji, characteristically captured the mood pretty well regarding how the voting process has been unfolding in Osun State this morning. And now, for further analysis of what to expect from today's exercise and what all of this might portend going forward, we are now being joined from our studios in Abuja by Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, who is the head of mass communications at Baze University, Abuja. Good morning. Good to see you again, Prof. Good morning, Prof.
Thank you, Steve and Femi. Good to see you here too.
All right.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so Nigeria and INEC are on the march again from Anambra election in November last year to Ekiti last month, and then Osun State. It looks like, yes, there might be a lot of noise and, movement, but then, we get it done somehow. Do you think that Osun will be different?
Yeah.
Or will it be an improvement? What are your, thoughts around today's election in Osun State?
Well, just like you said, and I remember the Yoruba proverb, around the many noise, around the peak, but eventually the peak will get to its destination, which used to be the proverbial or your town, as the case could be, So, just like you said, all kinds of distractions, all kinds of complaints here and there, but INEC is pushing on. And the case of Osun is particularly instructive, because it's the last of the off-season, off-cycle election that we usually have, in advance of the general election, But I think from another 2 years or so from now, Imo will be coming after Osun before we have the general election. Remember that Imo just joined the off-cycle states. So it's good development for the people of Osun. Usually a peaceful state, largely anyway, and of course with very vibrant set of politicians, and it's being reflected in the number of in those who are contesting. The frontline aspirants, the Senator Adeleke, the incumbents, and of course 3 other very brilliant gentlemen, Okumbi, then of course Lasun and Omigbodu, very brilliant guys. I listened to their debates. Of course they have a very good understanding of what the issues are with respect to the state. And of course, what it means is that they are not going to be, Osun people are not going to be short of people that understand the problem of the state. But what we want is to see an improvement on what we witnessed in Ekiti, where the election was characterized by, what somebody was called temporary purchase of loyalty, inducing voters, trying to commercialize the process. We can only hope that it won't repeat itself in Osun, but our hope is just a very weak one, because chances are that it's likely to repeat itself. But most importantly, again, is for us to have a peaceful election that is free, fair, and credible, so that INEC will have the opportunity to learn further, make adjustments, perfect the introduction of technology into the process, and prepare itself properly for the most important general elections, February next year. Steve and Adefemi.
Understood. I asked this question before, and I'm actually quite happy that you're here now for me to ask this question to you now too. When we look at Osun State, we know that it is quite strategic when it comes to presidential elections. Steve is right here to correct me if I'm wrong. But if we look at the voting bloc of the Southwest, it did look as though all of the Yoruba states, as it were, voted for Buhari, and it was Osun alone that did not vote for Buhari at the last presidential election. Is that correct?
No.
Is it not?
No.
Thank you, Steve. Was it not?
No. The only time that Osun State, and I'm sure Prof will know that, didn't go along with the other Southwest, was in 2011.
Yes.
When Arweshala was the governor and refused to vote President Goodluck Jonathan, while others voted. Prof, am I correct? I think that was what happened at the time.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so I'm in good company then. My question remains the same. Despite that, how significant, which is the crux here, how significant is Osun State when it comes to voting? Because if we, and like I said, I asked this question earlier, but hypothetically speaking, should Osun State fall to another political party, could that be indicative of what would happen at the presidential level come next year? Or should we take this state by state and take it as simple as the people of Osun State have voted and this is who the majority of votes went to?
All right, but first of all, Steve, you were not incorrect, and Adefemi was not also wrong.
Hey!
You know, it just underlined the fact that...
Yeah.
You know, it just underlined the fact that some of these things can be very shifty, they are unpredictable, and interest in politics change. And of course, you know, in the last couple of elections, we have seen some of those changes. Look at the last election in Osun particularly, for instance. It was a very close race, determined with a by-election or a runoff, as the case could be. And of course, it went all the way to the courts before a final resolution came into play. And of course, it may likely even instruct the elections that we'll have at hand now. It may rear its head again. We may not be able to ascertain exactly what's going to transpire, because we know that the two leading candidates, supposedly the incumbents and of course the PDP candidates, are very prominent people. They made their mark. Oyetola, for instance, belonged to the powerful national APC machine, and he may want to leverage on that, take advantage of that to make a very strong statement. And Adeleke too is a very vibrant person, full of very rambunctious, full of razzmatazz. He might want to deploy all that theatrical with a popular figure like the musician brother always behind him. And of course, politics, electioneering process sometimes is not necessarily about substance. It could just be about something that is less consequential. It may just be about likes and dislikes. So some of these things are very, very fluid. You know, like I always like to say, it's always like the desert sands, you know, the vagaries of the wind, you know. But again, it's very important for us to make projections on how it might instruct what the meanings it could make for the presidential election, like Adefemi want us to do. You know, yeah, Southwest is very important for any of the political parties that wants to lead at the center. They haven't done badly in terms of voting population. I think they're about the fourth or the fourth or the third in terms of statistics, you know, number of votes, you know. And of course, beyond the raw statistics of the potential number of voters coming from the area is the influence that the section wields, you know, that the influence that they wield, and their sophistication, oftentimes the ability to form alliances with other parts of the country, you know, could be something that can create a good ground for anybody to win at the center. So any state at all matter, you know, in the larger production, whether Osun or Ekiti, they will matter. You know, the average serious-minded politician would not want to discount any votes, and not even the vote of a state, you know, like Osun. First, numerical strength is very important. Then second, the influence of the area, and of course, Osun has you know, potentials in this respect. Adefemi and Steve.
All right, Prof, let me also make a quick clarification. What I was trying to explain was that, yes, the election, like the 2018 governorship election in Osun State, which was very close, so close that it had to go into a rerun in a few polling units. In the runoff. The presidential election in Osun State in 2019 was won by the APC with barely 10,000 votes. Buhari's APC scored 347,000 votes to Atiku's 337,000. As against what happened in Ondo and Oyo State, which went clearly to Atiku, if you know what I mean. So Osun has always been neck and neck, but then APC has always managed to win. Which leads me to my question. For today's election.
That's right.
It's a rematch without a doubt. But then the vagaries this time around, you know, are a bit different. For APC, it might look like it's an advantage that Iyiola Omishore, who probably flipped, you know, the election for APC in 2018, is now fully back, you know, into APC as the General Secretary, National Secretary of the party. However, we also know that a good number of key APC people, including the former governor and the Interior Minister, Rauf Aregbesola, even while they're still in APC, they do not seem to be on board fully, for Governor Yetola. How much of this do you think will determine what happens? Don't also forget that Lasun, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, also left APC to go to Labour, with Peter Obi going to Osogbo to campaign for him. It therefore means or suggests that the bulk of the votes that will go to Labour might come from APC. We shouldn't forget the fact that even in PDP, they also lost a few people to other parties. How do you think all this will shape today's outcome, given what happened in 2018?
Yes, Steve. These occurrences, these developments are actually concerning. If you want to look at the fortune of the party in this ongoing election, they are very, very concerning, considering the fact that it's about permanent, it's about interest, and of course, anybody who is shifting platform, who is changing platform, will do whatever it is possible to ensure the success of the new platform. And I want to also say that we cannot also discountenance the chance or the chances of a third force, in maybe the Labour Party person or the Accord Party businessman. Omigbodun was very good in the area of intellection. With due respect to him, I may not want to put him in that bracket. But Lasun is very vibrant. He had a very robust campaign, and like you rightly observed, he probably will benefit from the increasing popularity of the Labour Party candidate at the center, Peter Obi, that is. And if you add that to his own dynamism, his pedigree in politics, and the fact that he's a notable employer of labor in Osun State, who is very proud of it. He has multi-billion naira investment in the state, prominent individual who has helped the local economy of that place. So if it's not just about emotions and sentiment, it stands a very good ground, to create some kind of upset or to make some statement that beyond PDP and APC, a third force can also emerge in Osun State. And if that third force is going to happen at all, I see it coming through the Labour Party candidate, Lasun, the former deputy speaker. A very brilliant man. I watched all the debates, and he came out very, very impressive, even much more than one of the candidates in the leading parties, and of course, those are not the kind of people that, if we're in a sane, ideal democracy, there are some people that we should actually be eliminating from the debates. If you want to lead a people, you should be able to articulate, show understanding of what the problems are. Because if you don't have a basic theoretical understanding of the problem, then how are you going to address them? And it should also be an instruction for us at the center. We shouldn't allow the election to hold without some very robust, vibrant debate among the presidential aspirants. It's not enough for people to be rich. It's not enough for people to have sophisticated pedigrees. It's also important for people to demonstrate a very good level of contemporariness, which is showing us that you understand ongoing problems, bedeviling the country, through an ability to articulate them. Because it's from articulating them, that you'll be able to provide solutions. And of course, in advanced democracies, we see people not even deciding on who they are going to vote for until they have had them debate. And if we want to grow our democracy, this is a time that we should begin to imbibe some of the practices in these developed cultures, as the case could be. So back to Osun too, Labour Party candidate represents somebody who has all it takes to lead the state, to even win the election, to create some upset. But, we cannot tell, because sometimes we still talk about networks and structures, etc., which simply means money and people. I don't know how well some of the other groups, apart from PDP and APP, I don't know how well they have these facilities, but of course, it is still to be seen. Overall, Steve and Adefemi, I think the answer largely lies in the womb of time, but it's an interesting thing to watch. from what is unfolding. But the bottom line is let's have peace, free, fair, credible election, so that we'll be confident that we're marching towards the general election on a good pedestal.
Prof, do you think that religion has a role to play in Osun election? I'm asking this because of what the Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, said in campaigning for the candidate of the APC. And he said that he was urging Muslims in the state to vote for Governor Adegboyega Oyetola because he's the only Muslim governor out of the 6 in the southwest. Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ekiti, and Ondo, he says, are Christian governors. And people were wondering that at the time that we were trying to remove the influence of religion in our politics and our polity. This is Kano State Governor bringing in religion again into the Osun State politics. How much of influence do you think that his call will have on today's election?
Well, the statement is coming out as controversial, and I actually doubt if it's going to be allowed to have any major influence, because if you are coming in from that angle, it has very dire implications. What it means is that you are probably putting Christians in the state on the defensive, and anything that will put people on the defensive is not something that we actually need. It's not just people become governor, people become presidents, people become leaders, not just because of the vote of one religious faithful, religious partisan. They become leaders, through the voting, through the support of people from all groups, whether religion, ethnic group, cultural affiliation, etc., even income group, across gender. So when you now begin to say that a particular religion should not allow their own candidate to lose, that they should vote for them, then you are indirectly ostracizing the other groups. I just hope that he was misquoted or that he didn't say that, because Governor Ganduje, no matter what people say, is somebody that he's not really a bad governor, not necessarily a bad person. He has come out largely as a consensus builder, as somebody who is matured in his pronouncements, maybe because of his age. He's a septuagenarian, let's not forget, and he's well educated. Forget all the controversy around him. So I want to believe he didn't say that, and if he said it, really, it's actually unfortunate, because it's a very divisive kind of comment in a charged political atmosphere like this, where there's a major debate going on with respect to choice of presidential or vice presidential ticket in a major political party, as the case could be. So, but for Osun, for instance, Osun is a plural state, a microcosm of the Nigeria entity, generally, and we have had controversies in the past around hijab, around Okmoimo and all those kind of stuffs, controversies left, right, and center over religious issues, but something has always come above all these divisions, all these classifications in that state, and that's their level of education. Do not forget, we're talking about a typical southwest western state, where education is largely their hallmark, very close to Ekiti, and etc., etc. So I don't think religion will actually determine who is going to win the election at the end of the day. And let's not forget that Governor Oyetola is not the only Christian. Adeleke is a Muslim as well. He's not the only Muslim. Adeleke is a Muslim as well. But they are not going to vote on the basis of religion. This is a very elevated state. The minds are well fertilized. They are well schooled, and they are very well exposed. I don't see them, voting for their next governor only through the pigeonhole of the candidate's religious affiliation. It doesn't matter what an external person is saying. The politicians, again, can sometimes, out of excitement, because of the passion, the determination to help their candidate win, may say certain things that is usually overboard, or that we could say is ultra-vires. And this is one more case, and I don't think the reasonable people of Osun State will allow it to matter. I see them voting for the potential for performance, or the potential to continue to perform in the case of those who have been in power in the past. That's what I think, Steve and Adefemi.
Righty. I mean, if we take a look at some of the comments that Asiwaju Bola Tinubu made during this mega rally in Osun State. Steve already alluded to it with our previous guest and how he described the other political parties as mushroom parties. And while you can expect some level of mudslinging during political season, do you think that a comment like that could have the potential to blow back in the face of his own political aspirations, but specifically to the APC's effort to hold on to Osun State today? If this were to be a situation where come tomorrow or come Monday, we're talking about Osun State perhaps being under another political party, would it have been something like a comment? Would it have been a comment like that that would lead to such a change in the political waters over in Osun State?
I think political events sometimes can be very surprising. Sometimes you see a huge disconnection between pronouncements and consequences of pronouncements. You see people making some kind of statement, you expect it to affect them at the end of the day, but it turns out to happen, in the other way, to go the other way around, Because in the build-up to the APC presidential primary, for instance, what Asiwaju said in Abeokuta when he was talking about Olule, the Olule, Milokon, he wasn't diplomatic in his pronouncement. He was very frontal, very trenchant. Sometimes you will even say he sounded uncivil, and you will be expecting that kind of pronouncement, outburst, will rub off on his aspiration, on his fortune, on the likelihood of him emerging as the party presidential primary. And you also think that maybe some powers will move against him. But it turned out to work positively for him. And that's what I thought makes people to be much more careful and to think that, look, this is not a man that will go down not fighting. Let's not rupture the party and let's allow things to flow. And of course, it worked positively for him. And but ordinarily, it infused fear in the initial circumstance in the minds of those who probably love him with passion, thinking that he had spoken too much. But of course, they say it's a very good strategy. We are still, these things are still unfolding, and we're all watching it and enjoying it somehow. Though again, in Osun, of course, nobody will expect that he will make those kind of comments, again, slightly uncivil, slightly undiplomatic, something that doesn't come with finesse, because, it's not too respectful of the Labour Party, and that's why the response of the Labour Party presidential candidate is very, very dignified, very nice, and said, of course, to Labour, it's very dignified, very respectful. It's something that is noble. So do not feel bad if somebody is accusing you of being a labourer. That was a very dignified statement. He didn't come back to Asiwaju in the same light, in the same spirit in which Asiwaju spoke. So, but be that as it may, our democracy doesn't count some of those, things that should actually matter. Sometimes it's going to be determined by how much somebody has, the influence the person wields in a particular place, what he has done for the person, what he has done for the group in the past, and how much more money the person can bring on the name or the day of the election. When all these things come to play, they begin to forget pronouncements that are otherwise offensive. Yes.
All right, Prof, just a quick one before we let you go. I know that you've spoken quite robustly about the possibility of a third force emerging in Osun State. I'd like you to take that to the center and speak specifically about the running mate to the Labour Party candidate, that's Datti Baba-Ahmed. As a professor in the Baze University, can you give us the baseline, for this gentleman, pun intended, you give us the baseline about him? Briefly, please, just very briefly.
All right, I've known him for more than 10 years, closely, and of course, before then, I've known him by his public reputation, and I know largely he's a disciplinarian. He's somebody full of guts, courageous, pious, and prayerful. He's a very determined young person, setting up one of the best universities in Africa, private universities, if you permit me, at a very young age in his late 30s. And of course, he has capped it up with another university in Kano, and he has largely now one of the best private universities in this country, if not in Africa. So I know him as a very determined person, very focused. He hates corruption and he hates to circumvent processes largely. He does not also like eye services. He just wants you to do your job. He's a very cosmopolitan person, with a very strong heritage, coming from the very famous Baba-Ahmed family. Do not forget as well that his father was a famous Islamic scholar, but of course, who exposed most of his children to Western education. They embrace civilization. Very great family. So he has built on that, to empower himself, and even shocked many of his seniors, who never believed that their younger brother could be this achieving. And that's why he's well loved. A lot of people don't even know, by the average northern elite, for his achievement at a very young age. He's 53, and look at what he has done. And he has so much promise, to do more in the future. And of course, he's been mixing some of his efforts, endeavors with politics. So he's had a very good, he has made success of combining the two, and coming into Labour Party, I think, is a very good addition to Governor Peter Obi, who is himself pattern, pious, prudent, and a very resourceful person. So I see a commonality between the two of them in these spheres. And if Nigerians, probably look carefully, I think they're not going to be making the wrong decision. But I don't want to campaign. I'm not in a position to campaign for anyone. I'm just asking us, to be very, very circumspect and to think deeply, if we want to get things right, come 2023. But Datti Yusuf Baba-Ahmed, that I know, is a great gentleman, a decent character, a kind of person that you cannot show aside. Cosmopolitan, exposed, epistemic, deep and penetrating in thoughts and actions.
Professor, we have come to the end of our time allotted with you, but we do want to thank you very much for joining. It's always a pleasure. I'm so happy to be able to see you again. Even though you're all the way in Abuja, as usual, to be honest.
Thank you, Adefemi.